So here we are at the last state park on our road trip, and we are calling this place home for the next 11 weeks. Welcome to our channel. We're Jill and Charles, and we live over the river and through the woods in a yurt on a hillside in Vermont. This big adventure started about 3.5 years ago when we traded in a very familiar kind of lifestyle for a new one that some people fantasize about and others can't really wrap their heads around. And one reason I share these adventures is that I have pretty strong feelings about the value of what we ended up with in this trade. These things are difficult to put into words, but I'm going to try it anyway. In our old lives, back in Dallas, we worked really hard for a certain set of valuable things, like financial security, and the kind of respect people give you when you can easily explain what you do for a living. And our lives were predictable. So on the one hand, we needed a vacation whenever we could get one. And on the other hand, we had a pretty good idea, or at least a convincing illusion, of what our next month or year might look like. Nowadays, we sometimes have no idea what our next month or year might look like. And that can be, honestly, kind of scary. We don't love simple questions like, what do you do? Because we don't have simple answers to give people. Sometimes we have a job or a gig, and sometimes we don't. Some of those jobs have an income attached, and some don't. But here's the thing. We managed to put away just enough money that now we only say yes to the opportunities that we really want to do. Then we put ourselves out there and look for the next rewarding experience. It can be exhausting, but it's liberating in a way that we are so ready for at this point in our lives. So, we're getting ready to hit the road. We're temporarily moving out of our homey home, that's the yurt, and moving into our adventure home. That's our 25-foot fiberglass travel trailer. It's the end of September, and we have some pretty big news. We've actually been keeping a secret since last winter. You may recall we had kind of a difficult winter, and after we got our heating problems sorted out, I was working full-time. Charles was staying home, tending the fire, getting cabin fever. And around about February, we said to each other, let's go away next winter. So we are in the process of emptying the yurt of anything that could possibly freeze, and we're packing up the RV and getting ready to go to Florida. We'll be RV volunteers at 2 different state parks in Florida over the course of the fall and winter. But first, we have to get down there, and we'll be spending this week getting ready to go. We need to button up the yurt and all of its off-grid systems. Then the property can fend for itself in the Vermont winter weather. And we're getting our travel trailer ready to do what it was designed to do. We do use it for a guest room while it's parked on the property. But after Charles gets done with it, the Bigfoot will be ready to roll down the road. And after I get done with it, we'll have everything we need for it to feel like home for the next 7 months. If you're interested in the whole process of winterizing the property, we made a video about that once, and I'll leave a link to it here. Basically, Charles is making sure there's no water in any part of the plumbing that can freeze and break things. And I'm transferring every container with a liquid in it from the yurt to the travel trailer for the same exact reason. We're turning off the propane, and this time we even remembered to take the battery out of the Subaru, so we won't have to buy a new one when we get back. Okay, now we're ready. So let's talk about how and why we travel. Charles and I love exploring new places, but we also love feeling at home. The RV helps a lot with that, and it also slows us down in a good way. For this trip, we planned out a route with a stopover around every 200 miles. That's maybe 4 hours on the road at our slower pace, and it leaves plenty of time for setting up in daylight and catching up with family or friends when we park in their driveway.
It's cute when she's not puking and pooping.
Of course, we don't always know someone who lives at the perfect spot to park overnight. So we booked a few hip camps on rural properties where we could stretch our legs and check out the local landscape. This is not a sponsored video, but if you haven't heard of hip camp, it's like an Airbnb for people who travel with a tent or camper. It's not free, but it's a lot more pleasant than staying in an RV park, and it's often cheaper. And one of our favorite ways to travel is exploring public land. This trip happened during a federal government shutdown, so we were lucky that we happened to be visiting state parks instead of national ones. One park we checked out was Little PD State Park in South Carolina. It was a reservoir tucked away in a forest with longleaf and loblolly pines. We walked the nature trails in the afternoon, but we had to take off the next morning, so maybe we haven't learned to slow down quite as much as we should. And we went out of our way to check out Florida state parks in particular, because if we love volunteering for the Florida state parks, we might want to apply again in the future. At Tomoka State Park in northeastern Florida, we had just missed a big storm, so the whole place was flooded. But we saw our first gopher tortoise on the nature trail. At Blue Springs State Park, kind of near Orlando, we learned how special the springs are in Florida, so we'll be checking out more of those for sure. When we visited Blue Spring, it was a popular place to swim, and during the winter, it will be full of manatees instead of people. One thing to know about camping here, though, is that the local birds might be a little too interested in their reflections in your window. And there are multiple freight trains that come through in the middle of the night. They're not quite in the campground with you, but it kind of sounded like it. The next morning, we saw steam coming off the truck and the kayaks, and that was a reality check about the climate we'll be experiencing down here for the next 6 months. Kissimmee Prairie Preserve State Park is so remote, they put red lights on the campground bathrooms to help preserve the view of the night sky. The park is a grassland that's underwater for a good portion of the year, so if you want to see alligators, you just have to spend some time looking. So here we are at the last state park on our road trip, and we are calling this place home for the next 11 weeks. We're volunteering at John Pennekamp Coral Reef State Park on Key Largo in exchange for a camping spot, a few days of work each week. I'd love to make a video about that, but the truth is, last time I made a series of travel videos, I poured so much work into them and they only got a few hundred views. We'll see how this video does first. I do promise I'll make another one if this one gets 100 comments on it. So, how do you travel and why? Or maybe you prefer to stay home, but you like to learn about other places from books and videos. Let us know in the comments. Don't do anything stupid, Raven.